My guest today is writer-director Christopher M. Anthony and his BAFTA-qualified feature film, Heavyweight. Now, the film stars Jason Isaacs, Nicholas Pinnock, and Jordan Bolger, to name a few. And Christopher actually taught himself animation and interned for the Jim Henson Company at the age of 15. His first official job in London was actually with the Hensons. Now, over the years, he worked on a number of pioneering projects, developing the tools and pipelines that made London a world leader in VFX. He went on to develop perhaps the original atomization effect seen in many films today, and this was originally used for X-Men 3, later used to kill Voldemort in Harry Potter, and later copied many times over. Even in 2008, he moved to San Francisco to work at Lucasfilms on Indiana Jones and became a BAFTA member soon after. Today, we are discussing his BAFTA-qualified feature film, Heavyweight, where the greatest fight is in your mind and not in the ring. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome multi-talented filmmaker Christopher M. Anthony and his BAFTA-qualified feature film, Heavyweight, to the show. Welcome, Christopher.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you have such a very long film resume. When did you find time to write and direct your first feature film?
It was a little thing that we had called lockdown. It was during 2020, and that was the time when I chose to write it originally. I mean, it's an idea that I had had in my head for a long time anyway. It was just sort of banding it around, and I kept saying, "Yeah, I don't want to write it. I'll get someone else to write it, or something like that." I said, "It's an idea. I'll just park it to the side." And then people kept coming to me and saying, "You know that idea you keep talking about? I think you should just do it." And and I did originally try to get someone else to write it because I just had that imposter syndrome and I didn't really want to tackle it. And I find like writing such a lonely process anyway. And for one reason or another during lockdown, like we started to come together to do it just literally just before lockdown came in. We knew nothing about what was about to happen or how long it was going to be. And about halfway through lockdown, when we were allowed to do these lockdown walks, I sort of went to this writer, and he was sort of like, I'm not sure if I'm really going to do it. I'm not sure if I'm really right for it. And and I was like, okay, no problem. And we left each other, and I immediately started writing. I just went straight back. I went to David Nicolosi, who I've worked with on many films like Jungle Book and various others. And he actually happens to have been not only somebody who works in film with me, but also someone who was he was he used to be the security for a lot of quite top like boxers, including sort of George Groves and David Hay and people like that. And so he's walked a lot of people to the ring, and it coupled with my own knowledge and my own fight experience because I used to fight as well. And I started asking him sort of very particular questions about the way in which like a top level championship fight goes versus a smaller level one. And I remember I went home that evening and I just started writing.
Did your time in MMA inspire the making of Heavyweight?
Yeah, it was actually it was my last fight. I remember it was quite a long time ago, 2010, and it was a professional MMA fight, and it was quite a small scale, but still, still professional rules. So it wasn't like in Wembley Stadium, but it was it was like a big hotel in Guildford, and I remembered a lot about the emotion I felt during that day. And I've spoken to other friends of mine about how they tackle their emotion, they handle their emotions in in their fights, and everyone tackles it slightly differently. And some people really want to listen to thrash metal, and some people really just want to listen to classical music, and some people want to sleep, and you know and some people go through big emotional roller coasters through from the time they arrive to the time they walk out. And that intrigued me because I know that I did as well. And how when I first fought in sort of amateur competition, I was probably way more nervous than when I finally, my last fight. And that's because I'd learned how to deal with my emotions in a certain way. And that just intrigued me because, it is about the human condition, and a lot of filmmaking is about the human condition. And so I started. I don't want to say journaling. I think I'm not a person who journals. Um, but I did start noting down how I was feeling, what the course of the day was, mostly just so I didn't forget it. And it just felt like it felt like about 90 minutes to 2 hours. I thought, that kind of makes a film, doesn't it? And that's, I think, was the inspiration.
Well, this film is about the fight before the fight and the fight inside the fighter, but also the fight for loyalty and truth, correct?
You've said the word fight a lot of times in that sentence. I love it. It's yeah, I mean, it is. It's about internalized fights. It's about externalized fights. It's about someone battling his own imposter syndrome. It's about him creating separation with, you know, the ties that are binding him, that are stopping him from going on to be to the greatness. And that could include, for example, he's waiting on his brother to arrive, and his brother's at the end of this phone and his brother's running late, and he's like, but I can't do this without him. And so it's about him. I mean, the whole film is really it's a bit of a hero's journey. It's a bit of a boy to a man. It's about somebody understanding that he doesn't need, he needs to shed all these things. And just because you shed, just because you don't take your brother in there and he's running late, doesn't mean he doesn't love you, doesn't mean that love doesn't remain, doesn't mean he isn't still part of what you're taking into that ring. You are a product of every experience you've had as a human being up till now, and that includes all the training he's had. He's a product of everyone that's sort of come in, including some of the people who, the antagonists in this film. um
Well,
yeah
yeah,
and sorry.
no, but yeah, this film is so powerful, and I loved how you captured the behind the scenes of a boxing match. And it's kind of like the scene where Derek and Robbie saw his opponent on television, and then his whole demeanor changed. But it wasn't the opposing fighter that he saw; he saw someone else. He saw his training partner, and what I loved about that scene was you captured the instant fear that entered Derek's whole being, and the look in his eyes would almost spell defeat before the fight even starts.
Well, this was, that we actually, when we shot that, we didn't have that footage on the screen. So actually, Jordan wasn't responding to that specifically. I mean, he is just a great actor, and that's, we got to attribute that, and a little bit of direction. I think I did that. I did the directing thing where you get to nudge him a little bit and tell him what he's seeing. But he just reacted really, he reacted so well to it. And that's such an important moment in the film. And it is about, like, it's based on that moment is based on something that really happened. One of my old training partners, actually one of my first training partners when I first did MMA, was the first, I think it was the first MMA fight I'd ever watched. I'd started training with him 3 months before. It's He lost the fight, and I didn't realize until 2 or 3 years later. We were just talking about it, and he said, yeah, I got to the cage, and first thing I saw was one of my friends in my opponent's corner. He goes, it just threw me so much, because it's actually, that's really like heartbreak when you see that. And one thing, it's like an fu, but it's actually like you're seeing someone who's given a lot to you to be in that position, but he's sort of, why is he there? And without, also because in that moment you don't know what his motivations are. You just know he's there. So then your brain starts coming up with all these things of, well, why is he there? And you're not thinking about the fight. So that was a real story. And actually, that character of Kane, who went on to be, I mean, I'm so endeared to Osi Achilles' performance in that. I think he takes a whole film's worth of character arc in one act, and I think he just blows it out of the park. Um, it's he's hurt as well, and I think there was a lot of that came out of that moment. And I think I think I think it was the whole dynamic between them is like a father and two sons, two brothers, and one sort of say, well, why do you love my brother more than me? I do more. I do more for you than he does. I'm better than he is, but actually you give him the opportunity. And I think he just feels like this is his last chance at something, and it's already been given away to someone else. And so it's about that brotherliness, and actually there's awful lot of love in that room. It's just nobody wants to admit it.
Yeah, and I got to thinking because, and I'm sure you've seen this a lot, training partners who get jealous and feel that they should be the ones in the ring and not the ones that they're training.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that position myself. I've been, you know, when I was training, I had to switch teams because I felt I wasn't getting the opportunities I wanted, and you know, we were all a little bit too afraid. We all sort of felt, well, if we just keep giving the respect to the people that we're with, they'll eventually give us what we want. And actually, what would happen is that every few months, some new person would kind of come in, and they'd already got this established kind of fight career, and they'd be making money, and they'd come and join us, and then they'd get all the attention. And it got to the point where actually we just had to, we had to like manage our own selves and just go, look, I didn't do it. I might have fought professionally, but I didn't do it as a career. I was obviously working in film the whole time, and so it didn't mean as much to me. At the same time, you've got a limited lifespan in that. And with Kane in the film, um, the problem is he feels like now that he's lost this one opportunity to be potentially great, to be a champion, and it's been given away, he's now going to be relegated to being a journeyman. That's all he's got left now, because he's lost his last chance at some level of greatness. And I think you really see that in OC's performance.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, because when I saw the scene where Derek and his trainer and everyone saw the training partner in the other corner on the television, right after that scene, you placed Derek into the corner of the locker room. And I paused the film and I just looked at it, and it was so it was a very poetic cinematic move, and that feeling was felt in the whole film. But by placing him in the corner, that's what he was feeling. He felt like now that he was backed into a corner emotionally and mentally, and he didn't know what to do.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a couple of things on that. So that's great that you noticed that, because that was very deliberate. And we later on in the film, he's in the other corner, and we have that oneer, and he's feeling like everyone's attacking him, and he's cornered. He's like this sort of cat in this room. And then, of course, when later on we has the sort of the breakdown right near the end, after he's starting to warm up, he goes back to that corner. It's like his, and Jordan did say it was like his safe spot. It was sort of where he felt safe in that corner. And I also attribute that slightly because I allowed everyone to be able to find the space in their room. I allowed them to sort of say, well, look, where do you naturally gravitate to? And this was in every scene we shot. It was like, it's something I'd learned from Nicholas from a conversation before, which is I didn't want to give him marks. I wanted to say, okay, we know where we need to be. I want you to find your own way there, and I want you to decide. I said to Rob Malone, I said, go find the place that you want to hang up your jacket, and that's now going to be your corner. That's going to be your spot. And where do you naturally go there? So Jordan very, very naturally went to that corner, and then of course we do the opposite when he comes back, and we've got that one and he's surrounded. Um, but I'd give a lot of that also to not only the production designer Amy Meek, who's worked on great films like Boiling Point, but also to our BAFTA nominated, no, sorry, BAFTA winning, kill me for that, BAFTA winning DOP, Chaz Apeti, who did some really clever stuff with the room. Like, it's very subtle, but he lit every part of the room differently. Not only where you put the camera, but where the camera's pointing, which gives you a surprising amount of options. So when we're in the corner of the room that Derek's in, and we're looking towards those lights that are coming down, we get he's getting sort of almost like he's being embraced by the light. And I think that's why he feels safe there. It's a corner that he can go to, and he just feels like he's being embraced. We're much cooler on the other side of the room, and when we've got him being cornered, that's when he's feeling attacked. Um, and it's not just where the camera is, but actually which direction it is, because every part of it is lit slightly differently. And so I give a lot of that down to Chaz, but allowing the actors to find that space within that room naturally.
Yeah, I mean, because and I love the fact that you filmed the majority of this in one room. So by having all of these characters and with this one room, like the locker room, so to speak, did you storyboard it or did you use a shot list?
Actually, we did neither.
Really?
Yep. So I did a couple or three storyboards just of certain shots as almost like key sort of shots of where I wanted where I sort of expected things to be. I created a plan of the room. I already had a plan that I'd created, and then Amy came along and did her own version of it and how she was going to build the set. But then I took that plan back, and initially I kind of set it out like it was going to be a bit of theatre, and I had sort of upstage and centre stage and all these things, and I threw that out because there's no real orientation to it. And then I we didn't what we did we didn't we did neither of those things. We just let the characters enjoy the space and find their way throughout that space. And the way we did it, because we shot quite a lot of long takes, so we approached it a lot like theatre. We shot long takes, and the reason we shot long takes was actually we split it up into sort of shorter 3 minute sections and 4 minute sections and 2.5 minute sections because we had like there's scenes in there that are like 30 pages long, and we were like, well, okay, we'll split it up into smaller scenes, and we were going to do all these scenes within that day. And what happened was that the actors were saying, well, look, we've all done theatre before. I think Jordan was the only one who hadn't done theatre. We've all done theatre before. um, can we just put these 2 or 3 scenes together? And I was like, I mean, if you want to do that, yeah, of course, but continuity is going to be fun, and the script supervisor is going to have a lot of fun, and the editor is going to have a lot of fun because of course every take is slightly different. um, and they loved it because they loved that they could explore the space. They had a lot more freedom to do it, and I think storyboarding it and I think shot listing it would have probably killed it in this case. So what we did was we got the actors into a room with me. We closed the doors. We stood in a circle. We read through the lines a couple of times, saw how we felt about it. We put it on its feet 2 or 3 times. I let them find the space that they felt naturally. I then guided them much more, directed them more into things that either we needed to have or things that I just felt were better or things that would be better framed for the camera. And when they were comfortable, because I wouldn't have let them do stuff, I didn't want to prescribe things to them. I didn't want to say, go to your mark, this is your mark, you've got to go there. And then we would let the crew in and we'd sit in the corner and everyone would watch essentially them perform live theatre for them. And, at the end of it, they took a round of applause and they bowed, and it was very sweet. And all this time, every single HOD was kind of thinking about what they needed for that to shoot that shot. So Chaz was thinking about what the camera was going to be, and we had a very subjective camera. We had a lot of it was shot on sort of handheld or steady cam, and he was sort of going to decide, well, it's going to start here, it's going to go here, it's going to panel to here, we can go there. And then if you look at the camera, it is quite a roaming camera, but it is very prescribed, and it's very prescribed based on what Chaz has seen going into it. So yeah, I think if we had storyboarded it, it would have lost a lot of that freedom.
Oh, I completely agree. And I also, I look back with the scenes of this film and with the way that you shot it, one of the things that I loved is that every person in that room, the audience is engaged with every single person. There's not even there's not people just standing around being a bunch of nobodies. Everybody is playing their part, but the audience gets to feel every character's emotion, their reaction, their words. So I love the way you shot it.
they thought it was shooting a theatre, and for some reason it just didn't really quite work. It became necessary works, and I think one of the things that I wanted to do was with theatres you don't get really a lot of time to the eyes, and I wanted to make sure we saw this broad view of everything, which is why we have this central camera and we used I went for the two-camera effect because the immediate thing is Star Wars and you look forward and Netflix looks like it's very much your 25 on Jurassic, but then I looked at some sort of say that actually you even in a small room you can have width, and the width gives the characters walking wings. So and to me that helps you. It reminds you that they're walking in wings because if you were at the theatre, every actor they don't stop when someone says one person, you are seeing them every pause. Um, but the difference is you now also get to go really close and really behind, so I get to see them do beautiful performances. They're walking across the stage, they're doing walking across the scene, and we're seeing two of three of them interacting, and it's a bit wider because we're supposed to be an audience member, like not an audience member, someone in the room. So it's like you've got another teammate in the room, and then we just go close because you could imagine being in that room and just get so close to the audience, sort of going, "What's going on here?" And I love that because you get to see what's going on behind the scenes, and then you get to see as well some interesting stuff where a character is about to go away, and Nicholas is adamant in telling Robbie, just go out in that way, and whilst he's doing it, Derek is in the corner, like sneaking around on the phone and doing things behind. Everyone's doing things behind each other's backs, even though it's a very small space.
Well, yeah, it's like that scene where Jason Isaacs comes in, he sees what's going on, and he basically threatens the doctor. And when you have that small exchange going on, everybody else in that scene behind them, it's like they're doing their thing as what they were hired to do when it comes to a boxing match. So yeah, I love the theater aspect because things are happening. No, actors aren't standing around waiting for two people to finish their lines. You had this thing like a machine where everybody is playing their part perfectly.
Well, I think I genuinely give a bit of that to the fact that so many of them had theatrical experience. So they all had a really good insight and a natural ability to sort of to keep being in character whilst the spotlight wasn't on them. And then sometimes there were very deliberate things. There's one of the loveliest moments for me is when Kane gets angry and he goes, "That's bullshit," and he throws the chair. And whilst he's sort of still doing all this, you've got David, who's played by Joplin Sibtain, um, and he just very quietly just goes and picks up the chair and he opens it up and unfolds it and places it down because he's not angry and he's not trying to start a fight with Kane. He doesn't want there to be a fight, and he's like, "Okay, okay, you've thrown the chair now, but you just keep shouting, you vent, you do what you need to do, and I'm just going to very gently. You want us to rise or to lower ourselves to this, but we're not going to do that because we love you, Kane." And opens the chair and and it's all happening in the background behind Kane, whilst Kane's just like throwing abuse and hurt at this Adam, his coach, his old coach, and his training partner. And I think that's just one of the lovely subtleties in the film.
Yeah, there's this camera shot that I really liked. And I watched it a couple of times because I just wanted to watch the camera move because it was telling a story. And, it's the shot of Kane when you pan the camera from Derek to Kane. So the camera is panning to the left because Kane is actually behind Derek and Kane is on the phone. And when I looked at that shot, I was like, that shot signifies that he's not only talking about Derek behind his back, everybody else in the room feels that Kane stabbed him in the back when he became a traitor by going to the other opponent. And so when I saw that shot, I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome."
Well, Chaz will love to hear that. That is, I mean, that would be 100% Chaz, I think. But it comes a lot from that comes a lot from our conversation. We ended up having only met on this film literally like 2 3 weeks before we started filming it. We myself and Chaz had a very good shorthand because Chaz boxes as well, but and so he gravitated to the script very quickly, and that's why he wanted to do it. And we found a really good shorthand between us about the sort of things we needed to feel and see emotionally. And I think, well, I say I'm giving him credit for it. I actually can't remember, but yeah, it's, and I think with Kane as well. You still question a lot about his motivations. The whole thing, I think, is, did he really give away all the secrets? Did he go when he was in Cyprus every night? A part of me wants to think, and I don't want to make it too definitive because I like the conversation to keep going. But a part of me thinks every day in Cyprus he was going to bed feeling guilty, feeling like, have I done the right thing? Should I tell them everything? I feel this internal conflict in Kane quite a lot. But yeah, you have to absolutely, like that shot. You absolutely have to connect those two because they are like brothers,
Well, yeah, but
and you have
here's
to feel.
the conflict was when everybody turned against Kane.
Mhm.
And then but when Kane shows up, Kane is doing two things at once. He's defensive. He's trying to tell everybody how he feels, but then there's the other side of things that he doesn't want to lose their friendship either. So he's conflicted on two or three areas in this whole film, which makes it so interesting to watch.
Well, I think there was actually a moment right at the beginning when he first walks in, and because I remember we had this other gag that was going on, the thing with the playing cards, and I remember OC saying, "Thing is, I'm walking into this room, and I haven't seen these guys in a while since I basically defected." And he goes, "I think I'm going to hesitate. It feels natural to stop." And he walks in, and he sees Adam refusing to look at him. So he's looking from behind Adam, and we look on Kane's face, and he does stop for a moment because I think it is him sort of trying to actually process this thing that he's done. When he was outside the room, it was all bravado. Let's get on with this. Let's get in. What are we doing? Why are you getting us in the way? But then the reality hits when he walks in, and as I said earlier, there's a lot of love in the room. I think Kane's obviously hurt. We get the idea, we get the impression that he's doing this to be revengeful, to be spiteful, but actually he's just really hurt, and he knows I think he just really wants a hug. Like, I really do. I think he knows full well that these other guys who are using him, they're not going to care about him like at the end of this fight. They're going to drop him like a stone. They don't care. They're using him for this moment, and actually the people who really care about him are in that room. And it's been an unfortunate circumstance because Adams had to make this Sophie's choice decision of, who do I put forward? Do I put Kane or do I put Derek forward? And he uses this quite minimal excuse of, like, you were injured. He was injured, but he probably wasn't. He's like unrecovered. We know where he is, um, and so yeah, I think that no, Kane needs a hug.
Yeah, and because what I love about this film is that the audience looks at Kane like, okay, this guy's a traitor. They should kick him out of the room, and but they allow him to hang around. And I think, yeah, I think most for the most part, from what when I was watching the film, they're wanting to feel Kane out to see, and like you just said earlier, did he really give secrets away? Did he give Derek's game plan and moves away to the opponent? there's that question mark that we never know, but it's the elephant in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, or the elephant in the room. Um, don't hit elephants in rooms, please, guys. Okay. They don't like it. Yeah, no, it's exactly that. And actually, so the whole concept is, and I hope it read, because I know a lot of people who sort of said I didn't really know, I don't know much about boxing, I wasn't interested in boxing, but I kind of got it, and I believed the world even if I didn't quite understand some of the rules going in. Um, which is sort of how I felt about F1, but that's another story.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started on F1 because I am one of the biggest fans in the world.
Okay, well, I didn't. The problem is, it used to be you race around in a circle, and whoever gets there first wins. But then now, apparently, there's a whole load of new rules that I didn't understand, so I had to learn that as I went. But it's the same with this sort of boxing thing. It's like, well, why is Kane coming into this room? He's coming into this room because, and why is Robbie going to the other room? Because you have to supervise the hand wrapping of your opponent, because you have to know there have been cases in the past where people have cheated. There was a very famous fighter who had plaster of Paris wraps, and it all got signed off. And then before he went out to put his gloves on, he dipped his hands in water, and it all solidified. And he ends up causing, I think, brain damage to someone, to his opponent. And so you've got, that's why they do it. Someone is supervising to make sure there's no cheating going on. The big question is, why is it Kane? Because there's obviously there's the psychological thing. They're like, well, Kane, you got to go over there because you're going to get into Derek's head by just as soon as they see you, Derek's going to be completely thrown. But Derek, I think Kane also elects to go. I think he wants to go because he wants to show he's got this hurt, and he wants to show the people that he loves that he's hurt, because he doesn't know yet that they know he's hurt.
And he
And I think
he
that's
eventually, yeah, but he lets them know in his words. It's like when he attacks Derek and says, "Look, you don't deserve to be here. Like, I'm the one that worked harder. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. You're going to lose against this guy, but if I was in the ring, I'm not going to lose." So he's playing mind games, but at the same time, his reactions, it's so funny. And this is with everybody. You have to listen to what people say and look past it so you can find what the root of the problem is. And so Kane's root of the problem is he's jealous. He thinks they've passed him by. He feels that, he's still got it. He's in his prime. He's the toughest guy in the room, and nobody's paying attention to him about that.
totally. It's exactly, and as I said earlier, it feels like it's a father and two brothers, and you're sort of saying, well, why do you love my brother more than me? Why are you giving him opportunities? I help you out when you couldn't pay the electricity. I helped you out with this. I make money for you, and yet you give this opportunity to him. And what is it? What's the problem with me?
Well, he was pulling that card. He was pulling that card going, "You owe me." Well, the thing is nobody's owed anything. Now, maybe they should have been more grateful to Kane, but the moment you see your training partner on television in the opponent's corner, um, there's that love is gone.
But I think he wants it back though, and I think that's I think the crux of this sort of dilemma of, and also Adam sort of having, as I say, his Sophie's Choice moment where I think he knows he's hurt Kane, and he does, but he's been with Kane for so long, and he's been with Derek for so long. He knows he's hurt him, and he doesn't want to, but he's felt like he's had to hurt him, and he's now put in this position of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's a narrative dilemma, where we always called it the Sophie's Choice moment because we discovered it whilst we did a little bit of rehearsal, and we discovered it by playing it out, and it was there in the script, but we didn't realize how important it was until we'd actually heard it,
Well,
and we
the
actually
thing
sort of
is,
put.
yeah, because it was a thing with Nicholas's character, and Kane attacked him, and because of the fact is and telling him, look, you're looking at all of these fighters, and you're hoping to find that one fighter that's going to bring you everything you've ever wanted. So he throws that right at him. So it's kind of like, so you're going to put your cards on Derek when you could have put your cards on me.
Yeah, yeah, and he is sort of questioning, and I think the other question that comes into it is how much is Adam living vicariously through both of these men, in particular Derek in this moment? Is it, we get the sense that Adam maybe didn't get his shot, or when he was boxing when he was young, he possibly didn't achieve what he wanted, and then when he became a coach, he didn't achieve that sort of that great student who went on to be a champion, which is kind of similar to the sort of the whiplash. J.K. Simmons, he's always looking for that Charlie Parker, um, and of course that was a huge influence on the film. Um,
I loved Whiplash, but I think the whole world did too.
yeah, yeah. No, Whiplash is great, and I love some of the ambiguity in it as well, which I tried to bring some of that in. Not the ambiguity, but the kind of the subjectivity, so that you sort of say, actually, you decide how what that
Well,
moment meant.
I love the fact that with Adam, I love the deep scar over his eye because it tells the audience he knows what fighting is, but what is the scar he has that he's trying to heal himself?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much. There's a lot of things that are on the surface that reflect things that are going on underneath. And I think that's one of them. I really do. I think there's a physical side to things, but there's also this mental side to things. Like there are moments, for example, the mirror scene. Like I've asked. We had a few actors that potentially that were potentially going to come on for that, and for every single one, I said, "What do you think that means?" Because it could mean a number of things. Now, the really easy, obvious answer is angry man, punchy mirror, but I think that's really, really obvious, and I think it could be that for some people, but I don't necessarily think that is what it is. I have my own opinion of what it is, but everyone who cast for it, and I had you know lunches with people and so on. I won't mention any of their names out of courtesy, but everyone gave a slightly different answer on what that meant, because I think it meant something to them as an actor. What they saw in the script, they sort of brought into themselves. And there's another big question, which is like, does he win the fight at the end of it? Which a lot of people ask me, and I always just say, well, what do you think? And then they tell me what they think, and I'm just like, okay, it's whatever you want it to be. It's not. I don't think it's even that important. Um,
No, I didn't think it was that important. I love the story all the way up until that ending, and I thought the ending was fine because half of my brain would say, "Oh, it'd be great if Derek won." The other side would have been maybe, maybe it was a draw. Maybe the other guy won uh, based on what the cards say. No knockout. He lasted the 12 rounds. I was just I enjoyed the whole film all the way through. And at the end, I was like, hey, whatever, because I was so enthralled with the whole storyline going on in the locker room. Because the scene when Derek injures his hand by punching the mirror, I loved how you played that whole sequence after that happened because it showed that one person's actions can be detrimental to everyone in the room. So I thought it was completely nicely played. And, but you also kind of give us an inside look as to maybe the dark side of competitive one-on-one sports because there are many people who do look the other way so the show can go on because it's always about money.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that moment, of course, and the language of the cinema changes quite massively in that moment. The edit changes, the shutter angle changes, the it becomes handheld, like all these sort of great tricks. We do this. We have a heartbeat on the scene, which in fact the whole large chunks of the film have a heartbeat which is quite subtle. It's certainly hear it in the bass, we can feel it in the bass, and usually it's around the heartbeat, the sort of average human heartbeat, and in certain moments it speeds up and it's quite subtle, and then other times it slows down again when we get back. So we do a lot of those tricks, but then you're also revealing so much, because it's when you've given people this this problem, you then generate this conflict around it, because you're everyone's now reacting to something, and they're all reacting in different ways. You've got Robbie, who's been this little firecracker, this little angry Irish guy who's just like, getting angry at everyone, and you're trying to screw us, and you're trying to screw us.
I loved Robbie.
So I love him as well. And he's just suddenly becoming really protective of Derek. Whereas you've got Adam, who's supposed to be the protector. He's the coach. He's the one that Derek really looks up to. Derek doesn't look up to Robbie. He doesn't look up to anyone. He looks up to Adam. He's like a father figure to him. And suddenly Adam's going, no, he's going to fight. I don't care if he's got a broken hand. He's going to fight because this is good for him. But is it good for him, or is it good for Adam? And so you start to reveal what people, and then you got amazing Barriere playing Paul as the cut man, and he's like, listen, do you want me to do my job, because I can't do my job unless you guys shut up and stop bickering over me. And in all of this period, you've got Derek saying nothing, saying a lot with his face, but he's got all these people talking over him, and that was very deliberate. It was to not give him a voice in that moment. It's now around him, not necessarily him. And that, the crossfire that's going on there, I think is really interesting.
Well, here's what that whole sequence. Yeah, that whole sequence told me that it was like when Jason Isaacs walked in the room, the doctor walked into the room, the guy that signs off was there. You had Adam, you had Robbie, Kane was still there, but Derek, you're the product, and we're here to make money off of you. And for you to keep him silent, where we only see his facial expressions, his emotions, his deep thoughts coming across his face, well played.
Yeah, he's just a commodity. He's there to make money for, for Jason's, for Freddie Goodson's character, Freddie Goodson. But then the doctor's sort of having to have her own conflict of, I'm being told what to do, yet she's the most powerful person in the whole film, because she can stop this fight in a heartbeat. And she does have that conflict of, I'm about to disappoint millions of people. At the same time, I've got this Hippocratic oath sort of duty of care that I have to make sure that, I can't have my patient be injured. She's also got, she's being barked at, she's being pressured, everyone's got eyes on her. We don't really know where Derek's position is. He is sort of saying, at one point, we're not sure whether he has actually been trying to sabotage. Like, is that one of the things that the mirror was doing? Was it actually him trying to sabotage this moment because his
I
brother's
had
not there?
that thought.
Yeah. But also people think, was he self-harming? He makes a statement, and I love, this is again one of the most beautiful things that Sienna did. 100% it was her instinct. I think it's her maternal instinct. I think Sienna as a mother had this great maternal instinct to take Derek away and walk him. When she takes him away and says, I need to ask you, do you want to fight? And that's, to me, is such a beautiful moment, because all these people are making decisions for Derek and no one's actually asked him. And she's the first person who actually says, you know what, I can make or break this moment. I'm being shouted at. I can still say no. I may never work again for Freddie, but I actually care about you and your health and your well-being. And she's also thinking a little bit about, well, if I send him out to fight and he gets really badly hurt, and they discover that he went in with an injury that I knew about, that I signed off on, that could be potential, lawsuits. That could be court cases. That could be a lot of problem for her. And there's that one moment when he says, "Look, I've been doing this my whole life." We don't know what he's been doing his whole life. Is it he's been beating people up, and that's why his knuckles are the way they are? or is it that he's been harming himself? Is this self-harm? Is that something that he did? He never gives you that answer, but he tells you those words. And so she has that beautiful moment, having taken him away and asked him, and you just see that conflict where she's just like, okay, good luck tonight. And she's like, she's made that decision, and no one's made that decision for her. And she's given everyone a chance to speak, and she's made that decision. But ultimately, it came from Derek.
Yeah,
And I
and
think that's
it's like she crossed the line, but she can't come back from it. But it wasn't just her. The guy that signed off, he was also, in a way, he was also guilty of allowing it to go on, because there's two sign offs. There was the sign off before you put the gloves on, and then there's the sign off on the glove itself. So there was two chances there, and he signed off on both. Now tell me, how did you cast Nicholas Pinnock, Jason Isaacs, Jordan Bolger, Ossie Ikali, and others in this film?
we okay. So first person who came to the film was Nicholas, and Nicholas and I had known each other for many years before. And actually, we had apparently been speaking. I'd mentioned this idea to him for a while. I'm sure it was another idea, but anyway. And I went to him with the script. I'd finally written it. We came out of lockdown, and I think I saw him in the gym, something. And it was, and I was like, "Oh, listen, I've got this thing. I've written it. It's all right. It's kind of, I wrote it relatively quickly, and I think it's gone. I was about 4 drafts in, and I'd written it faster than I'd normally write. I'm very, very slow." And he read it, and he came back to me, and he said, "I'd love to do it, but I'd love to come on as a producer." So we couldn't really turn that down. It was a good opportunity, and obviously we wanted to work. We've been trying to do projects together for a while, and I mean we knew each other socially before that, and so we started bringing people in. He brought in Julie Harkin and Nathan Toth, who were our casting directors, Harkin and Toth, and we started casting like through a normal casting process. We didn't have we were still doing tapes. We were still coming out of lockdown, so weren't quite doing in person just yet. And we went through. We had people casting for everything. Like I mean, OC did cast for Derek at one point, and I just absolutely adored everything he did. And we went to see him. He invited us to see him in the National Theatre, beneath the Alabama sky. And we had a drink with him afterwards, and I was just like, "Please, whatever we do, do not let this guy go. Just he's just too good." And there were, we ultimately decided he was being slightly older, that he would be better to play Kane. Kane was actually named something different at the time. Casting, so he came through the casting process, but because he had cast for the role of Derek, I don't remember if had yet got onto casting of Kane at that point. But he was just so good, I just could never get away from it. And I'll tell you another thing that really helped, and I think he's okay with me saying this, but during the courting process with OC, I so wanted to make sure I had a video go away. He's a very good skateboarder, and I'm a very bad skateboarder. And one day I said, OC, mate, can we there's an old man night, over 30s, right? Beer and a burger for £10, in a skateboard, a skate park near where I live. And it was like, "Are you up for it?" And we went and we skateboarded, and that was just part of my courting process for OC, because I was like, I cannot not have him in this film. But of course, we had to, we had to pivot around Nicholas's availability, but actually we had to pivot around getting Derek cast. And we went through a few people, and Nicholas had, we again went through a proper casting process. We reached out to people. We were looking at people who could put the weight on, because the thing is, Jordan is naturally about, I mean, 70 something kilos. He's not naturally a heavyweight. I was like, I would have refused to do the film if my lead actor could not make it to heavyweight, and he did. Um, I genuinely wouldn't have done it because and it was one thing I was really particular about. Because if you look at sort of Tyson and so on, Tyson's not very ripped, whereas Jordan's really, really ripped at 78 kilos. And so we were just like, we had him train up, we had him do pad work, we told him just eat a lot of ice cream, like melt ice cream, like put it in the microwave and drink it. And he's drinking smoothies and eating 5 times a day and all these things. I was with him quite a lot of that as well, and he made weight, and I would never have done it without him. But prior to him coming on board, we did have other actors, other pretty well-known actors, and some of them, for different reasons, like different shows came up, and they just didn't really work out. A couple of cases, people were a bit unsure that they could put the weight on and feel like they were a heavyweight. And then Nicholas had done a show called This Town, which was written by Stephen Knight, and it was very popular on BBC. And he went, "Listen, can we just look at this guy Jordan? Like, we've become friends on this thing, and I think he could be really good for it." And so we met with Jordan, and we took him for lunch, and he seemed to really connect to the material. Like, his father was a boxer, his mother was a fitness instructor, a champion kickboxer. His mother was like a fitness instructor. He had connections to other elements in the story that were quite personal to him, and I think he just really bought into it. And he just was up for the challenge. He was up for putting on the weight, and he puts a lot of vulnerability out onto that screen, and I'm really grateful for him to allow us as an audience and me as a director to be able to direct that. Regarding the other characters, again, we went through a process. We did have casting tapes come through. We did. One of our producers, Oliver Slinger, is an independent talent, so that really helped us. Not necessarily cast. We didn't cast just because of them, but it helped us kind of build that bridge to sort of access certain people. With Jason, oh yeah, sorry. Another really cool story about Joplin was that the character of David, the security, and I know Joplin from shows like Andor, and I think he's in the new House of Dragon as well, and he's in loads of stuff. And the thing with him was, I got a load of casting tapes, including from people that I really like and I really admire, and everyone just played like he's the security, and everyone played it quite aggressively to start with, and Joplin was the one guy who played it really gently, and it instantly stood out to me that he really understood that this role isn't to be, just because you're a security guard on this thing, you're Jordan's, you're the heavyweights security, doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're trying to be there to diffuse situations, not generate them. And he just seemed to really get that instantly. And there was something just so warm about him. And as I say, there were a load of great castings that I love, and I want to work with almost everyone who cast for that at some point. But he just got it instantly, and I don't think he even realised he got it. And I told him at the read through, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not sure if that was what I was going for." I'm like, "Don't worry, it's good. Just run with it. You got it. You got it. It's good. It was perfect." And I think he played that really, really well, because he is this gentle. You just know that if something kicks off, he'll throw someone through a door.
Well,
But he
yeah, because
doesn't.
he put the guy with the headset, he kind of, you know, kept him at arm's length the whole night and controlled everything.
Well, Blake Harrison, incredible actor who I think everyone really associates with the In-Betweeners, but he is like infinitely more than that. I knew him as on the In-Betweeners, and I adored him. And he actually runs an MMA podcast. So he was instantly really kind of interested. He actually doesn't. Apparently, he doesn't. I discovered recently he doesn't actually really like boxing that much. But he was so connected to the MMA world, and he was able to. We had a great call with him, and he was just absolutely fantastic. And he really got it. And because there's like a nice little double act going on between Tom and David, even though he's a great serious actor, he just added a little bit of fun to it as well. And I think it worked really well, because that gives you a little bit of comic relief, but not too much. Um, you sort of almost feel for him, because he just wants to do his job, and he wants to do it properly. He just wants you to get out. Just please, let's get out for 10 p.m. That's all I want. Just like work with me here. And it's so endearing. And I love, because I also love that as a double act, Tom Blake and Joplin's David do this every single time. And they love each other, but they're at odds with each other. And they're just the odd couple, I think. They they genuinely deep down respect each other, and it's just they're always at odds with each other because they're in conflict with what David has to do protecting his fighter versus what Tom has to do to be like, I need my show to run on time. Like, look at the time; it's like nearly time to go. And I think it provides some good like light relief in it actually.
Yeah, I love the interaction between those two because it really added more to the film as to what was going on outside the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then and just the other supporting cast, I think they were all just did wonderful jobs, even if when they only came in for a very small period of time. I mean, actually, Jason. I mean, we should probably talk about Jason separately. I think, um, but I mean, like Rob Malone was a fantastic. Like he just had a great. We knew he was going to be this little firecracker of a. He's so talented, and he comes from a strong theatre background as well. And I think he did Ferryman at one point. He's so good, and he just kind of came in and he could just explode, and he could also care at the same time as well. And I loved that you got both sides of him. Um, and he's sort of funny because he's not funny as well. I sort of like that. Um,
So how did you cast
uh,
Jason Isaacs?
Jay's okay. So I that's a great question, and the the easy answer to that. Okay, I we were looking for that role, and my first instinct was I'd love someone like Jason Isaacs, and I kind of knew a few people who knew him, and I was like, well, can I? Do you think we could get him to engage? Like, you've got his number. I don't know him very well, but could you? And then it's transpired when I brought it up in the casting, and we were told, oh, we absolutely aren't going to get Jason. Like no chance we're going to get Jason, and he's huge. He's like in all these different things, and he's brilliant. And and it turned out that Nicholas and him both have the same manager, and that manager Jeff Goldberg is actually one of our executive producers on the film. And so, and I've only just heard this story, but I think Jeff went to Jason and said, "Listen, would you be up for doing something for for the family?" And I think Jason was like, "Don't be daft. Like, of course not. I need to get paid properly. I need to." And then he went, "Okay, would you at least just have the courtesy of reading this script?" And he gave him this script, and he read it, and I think he just really enjoyed it, even though it was a small role. He really enjoyed it. It was a very powerful role in what he did. It gets probably the biggest laugh in the whole film, which was an improv. It was actually an improv from him. Was fantastic. However, it did turn my film, which I wrote as a very much a PG-13. I think you got film suddenly became like a 15 or something. It was like or NC-17 or whatever you guys have got. And I was like, oh, what's he doing to my film? But it's so good. I can't. It's just so good. And we were just all behind the camera, just like absolutely creasing up, just dying of laughter. That is just we can't. And he was wonderful. He said he came to me. Sorry, the first thing was he said, "I'll do the film on one condition, and I get to say this word." And of course, it was the dirtiest word in the whole film. And I was like, "Well, I can't say no to that." Um, and then he came on set, and he was so generous. And he was so generous with all the actors. He was so generous with me. He was lovely to talk to. We had turned out we had a lot of friends in common. We had a lot of interests in common. He magic and things like that. Like he's a magician. He does a lot of magic. He's just wonderful. Um, and he made us all feel really special to be there because obviously we were all there going, oh my god, we got royalty on set, film royalty on set, and I'd worked on Harry Potter before him because I worked on the first one and he only came in the second one, um, and I remember he came on set and he said to me, "Maybe don't mind, I've taken the liberty to change just a couple of lines." if you let me do them, would you just let me do them? Just let me try them. We can go back. We can go back to the original. I've got no problem with that. But just let me give them a go, would you? Yes, Mr. Isaacs, you can do whatever you like, sir. Like, honestly, just please, I'm happy to hear your lines. Then he just comes in, does that scene, that particular scene, and he absolutely destroys the house just comes down listening to him do this line, and then he does another take and he changes it slightly, and it's just even better. He does another take, and it's even better. And it was wonderful, wonderful to work with him. But yeah, he came basically because him and Nicholas, for two things. Him and Nicholas had the same manager, which was really, really helpful to get the script into his hand. But actually, he did buy off on the script completely. He did actually really want to do it.
Well, now that Heavyweight is BAFTA qualified, that must feel incredible.
It's been a mission to get there for sure. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to get there. We've had a kind of interesting run. We were the opening film at Rain Dance, and if you see behind me, we've got that's the Rain Dance. Let me just read that. Hang on, what does that say? Best director of a UK feature. I forgot what it was for a second. So we got an award. We were the opening film at Rain Dance, and we sold out a Leicester Square theatre with like 300 seats, and we had a beautiful after party. We had a lovely Q&A, and it was really nice. It was nice to get sort of some recognition. It'd been a bit of a while. The British industry wasn't really digging drama at the time, and it was a difficult spot for the first couple of months when it kind of came out, and then this sort of changed everything. We had a big announcement in Cannes. We also played the British Urban Film Festival, and actually this one here is the let me read it again. Hang on, I can't remember what it is.
So,
British
so
Urban
the
Film Festival,
film appeared at Cannes?
best UK feature. No, it was announced in Cannes.
Oh,
So there was a big party with Rain Dance, and they announced it there, and it was then about getting the momentum off the back of that. So yeah, we won the best UK feature at British Urban Film Festival as well, and now it's just about this was enough to sort of get us qualified for some stuff, but really it was about the sort of theatrical release, and now we're looking at a January 16th release, I think, in theatres in the UK. And that was what we needed to get BAFTA qualification. But I've got a very good relationship with BAFTA. I've sort of been very much an active part of the award circuit for many years, and it's been definitely very interesting seeing it from the other side, actually putting a film out there. It's opened a lot of conversations that I wouldn't have had before, and that's been really wonderful. I've sort of, for some reason, all the conversations end up revolving around Jason. I remember I had a conversation with Adam Sandler after like the screening of, I think it was Jay Kelly, and we were chatting. I said, "Oh, I've done this film. It's in contention, and by the way, it was like really, parts of it in terms of feel were really inspired by Uncut Gems." And he starts asking me about it, and he goes, "Oh, who's in it?" So, well, Nicholas Pinnock's in it, and this guy's in it, and Rob Malone's in it, and Jordan Bolger's in it, and Jason Isaacs. And he goes, "Oh, Jason, man, I fucking love that guy. You got to tell him I miss him. God, yeah, tell him I gotta catch up with him soon." And I'm just like, that just really, like, a lot of people love that man. Like, everyone who seems to have interacted with him has got nothing but good to say about him.
well, it
So that's
helps your
kind of,
film.
yeah, totally, totally. But it isn't just Jason. There's so many good other performances, and I'm really conscious. We've got so many other crafts people on it. We've got a score from Andy Burrows, the Razorlight drummer of Razorlight, who performs with Katie Tunstall and Smith and Burrows, and sometimes We Are Scientists as well. And he writes all of Ricky Gervais's scores, and I think the score is beautiful. I think it's unique. I think he uses the word bombast. Very bombastic, and I don't know what that actually means, but I love it, and I'm going to use it in conversation more often. He, I'll find a way. I'll look it up, and then I'll work out where I can put it into sentences. It's a very percussive score, because boxing being about being a percussive sport. We've got Aaron Mahoney, our sound mixer, and you probably haven't heard it in the best version. I mean, the theatrical version of it, where the sound is really there. the detail in it and the clever tricks. And Aaron did this incredible sound design, this landscape, which balanced really well with Andy's score. And you never know where the sound design ends and the score begins. It's sort of very fluid, and we really work that, and we do lots of clever stuff. Lauren Miller, our incredible costume designer, who's done things like Supercell and Top Boy. Our editor Eve Doherty, she has just this wonderful emotional intelligence on to cut this film in a way and to pull these moments out of this. She has great rhythm as well, and I was so proud of the whole team, and that I just want to talk. I want to shout from the rooftops about all of them. It's lovely that everyone's. A lot of people talk about Jason, but there's great performances in there, great actors in there, and a lot of great craftspeople. Nikki Weir, our head of hair and makeup as well, and she's one of the few deaf hair and makeup supervisors working in film today. And we just wanted to make sure we had this beautifully inclusive set with everyone, and we wanted her to feel as part, every bit a part of the team as anyone else. And so we really aimed to do that. But beautiful bunch of people. I want to talk about all of them, but I know we
Well,
probably can't.
the all the actors were fantastic. The close-up camera shots really brought out their talent, the ability to show emotion, but also the emotion behind the eyes, behind the facial expressions. It's one of the best independent films that I've seen this year.
That means a lot to me, and that will mean a lot to the cast and crew. I'm telling you, they are, and they're all just annoyingly beautiful people in their own way. Like the thing is, this film is a lot about what's unsaid, and the original versions of the script were a bit more expositional, and you pare away and pare away and pare away, and then it's about you getting that balance where you don't want to take too much away that there's not enough left, but you want to take enough away that you're not just spoon feeding an audience. And what's left in the middle is the actors filling those gaps, and that's what I think they did incredibly well. The
Yeah.
looks that they have that say everything without saying anything.
Well, I have to give you chops for doing something that I wish other filmmakers would do. When you have a heavy character driven film and heavy dialogue, you made this film flow so well. It was never slow, it was never dull. I hung on every word of every character. And I love the fact that I wish other filmmakers, um, hint Scorsese, keep them at 90 minutes, because you can do a lot in 90 minutes and capture the audience and make them love you when that film is over. And you did that with Heavyweight.
Yeah, I think if it had gone any longer, I think it would have. We are seeing too many 3 hour films and 3.5 hour films, but actually, I don't think the film necessitated it. I think to keep that pace up, especially because once, probably from about the mirror break onwards, the film just is relentless. It never stops. I had someone messaged me a while back and said, I watched your film and I wanted to make a cup of tea in the middle of it, but I couldn't find any point that I could stop it to make a cup of tea. So I just watched it until the end, and I made my cup of tea afterwards, and I love that. It's because I found that as well. Even though I've seen it about 400 times, I remember I would sort of go to the middle because I'd want to find. I'd just look at a certain scene or something, and then I just end up watching it to the end every single time because there was no logical place to stop, and then I'd be exhausted the next day because I was meant to have gone to bed an hour ago, but I
Well,
was too busy kind of watching the end of my film.
now are you planning, after the UK release, are you planning on a release in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking. I don't know what the status is at the moment, but sort of post AFM, I think there was some conversations happening for a theatrical release. I'm not sure of the status of at the moment. Unfortunately, obviously, it does miss this year's sort of Oscar sort of push, but that's fine. There's plenty of other sort of awards and so on. But obviously, the real focus, it's such a British film that our focus is really to try and see where we get with the British audiences. It's definitely not going to be easy. There's a lot of good films out there this year, and a lot of smaller independent films, a lot of debuts this year. And I'm realizing just how important exposure is. People need to see it. And the thing is that one thing that people have said is they didn't know they didn't know about the film. They'd sort of skipped over it, not realized it, and then they've actually watched it. And when they finally watched it, they're like, oh, that wasn't the film I thought it was going to be. And I was like, yeah, I need like about another 7,000 people to say that. I need all the voters to actually realize that it's not the film they think it is, and it's more enjoyable. And that's the difficulty of exposure at the moment.
Yeah, I'm glad that you took the risk to create a story of what happens behind the scenes before the bell rings, and you did it. And I love this film so much. And ladies and gentlemen, Heavyweight follows wild card boxing contender Diamond Derek Douglas and his support team ahead of a title fight he doubts he could win. But the pressure escalates in real time as dirty tricks and revelations are revealed. But Heavyweight is an intense, visceral experience exploring a side of elite sport rarely seen. Now, this film is character driven and dialogue heavy, which I love. And the film is actually fast paced and gets to the heart of the story quickly. This is how you do a film right. Now, the film, again, is tense, it's emotional at times, but helps us to learn that in life, the biggest fight is what happens when we let our outside sources affect our thoughts. As long as we don't allow those thoughts to enter in our hearts, we still have a chance to win in life. And Christopher, thank you so much for giving me the honor to watch your film, and I'm keeping an eye out on your BAFTA journey. So well deserved.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for the time. It's been wonderful talking to you. It truly has been. I've had a blast. Let's do it again for the next
Hey,
film. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your next film. I think you've cemented your place in the world of film directing, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Neither can I.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, remember, here's the thing. If whenever you get, and for all of my UK audience out there, come January, head to the theaters. You need to see Heavyweight. This is one of the best independent films of the year, and you're going to enjoy it as much as I have. And for the rest of you, you can catch all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Audible, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.